so Israel Keyes was a serial killer, the likes of which the FBI's top minds had never before encountered. He terrified them. I came across this story. It was a tiny little online piece. And in the second graph of this piece, it said that I'm not going to spoil the end of the book for anyone who is unfamiliar, but that his modus operandi was unlike any other they had ever seen. That he was based in Alaska where he lived with his longtime girlfriend and young daughter. He would fly into a major American hub, um, take apart his cell phone before boarding a plane, like rip out the battery, take out the SIM card, break it apart, get on a plane, rent a car once he landed, drive hundreds or thousands of miles into a remote location where he would dig up one of the many kill kits he had buried across the country. These were 5-gallon Home Depot buckets filled with cash from bank robberies he had committed, with zip ties, with liquid Drano to accelerate the decomposition of human flesh. He would then go on the hunt for a victim or victims. He often liked to take people in twos, abduct them, rape them, torture them, murder them, then dispose of the remains so expertly that he left no DNA behind. He would often take the bodies across state lines. So he's active in multiple states over, say, a period of 24 to 48 hours. And this is also in a post 9/11 America. So he's evading surveillance, digital, electronic, you know, traffic cams, all that stuff. And the way in which the FBI caught him was like, I spoke to all of the agents who worked this case most closely, like once a week for 2 years. So it's very, very in depth. To your point about our fascination with true crime, I was very careful while reporting and writing this book not to turn Israel Keyes into some sort of maniacal dark genius that people lionize. I was very careful to only give details of what he did to his victims that were going to be helpful in hopefully pinning other cases to him, and for law enforcement students reading the book because they teach this case. And I was also as fascinated, if not more so, by the psychology of every FBI agent who was in that room with him and who were jockeying each other out of the way to be the one to question him, and the ways in which this really consequential case was botched by the FBI and by the federal prosecutor because they all knew it for what it was. In a post O.J. Simpson world, this case was a star maker, and it was going to take all these people who worked in Anchorage, Alaska, who were complete unknowns. It was going to make them famous. I'll say this about Israel Keyes. Everyone in his life, except his mother, was shocked when the FBI came knocking on their doors and said, he's one of the most prolific serial killers and one of the most terrifying we've ever seen. No one could believe it. His mother was like, yeah, that tracks. I was waiting for you guys to show up. I think, and I'll just say this about American Predator. I like when true crime is done really well, it is so illuminating. It's not just entertainment. Like, it's illuminating. Like, as a woman, I'll never walk through the world the same way when I was reporting this book. The true crime that I really love is like, it's literary, it elevates. It's like Norman Mailer's The Executioner song. It's Anne Rule's The Stranger Beside Me. It's Fatal Vision. It's these stories that are telling us something about where we are as a country and a culture. They're bigger than just the crimes themselves. So I took it so seriously. I really wanted the book to have a long tail, and thankfully it has. I mean, it's still a thing in the culture, which I'm very gratified by. I'm Maureen Callahan. I'm the author of Ask Not: The Kennedys and the Women They Destroyed. Um, why? I knew I was going to do a Kennedy book for years and years. I columned on them a lot, very critically. And I always sort of the sort of big bang of this book was Ted Kennedy's funeral. And for those too young to know, he was a lifelong US Senator who was regarded as the quote lion of the Senate, the only surviving Kennedy brother. His older brothers, JFK, assassinated while a sitting US president, his brother Robert F. Kennedy assassinated while running for president. Um, and he was given a statesman's funeral with wall-to-wall media coverage over 3 days. And not once did I hear the name Mary Jo Kopechne. Who is Mary Jo Kopechne? Well, she was a 29-year-old Kennedy campaign aide who Ted drove off a bridge in Chappaquiddick, left her alone to die a slow, agonizing death by suffocation in an overturned car that he was driving in 3 feet of water. Ted, upon making his escape, ran past a firehouse, lighted residential homes, payphones, went to sleep at his inn the next morning, showered, shaved, had a hearty breakfast, and hail fellow well met exchanges with people vacationing, and then took himself over to the local PD to announce that he had had a little car accident the night before. This woman has been forgotten, and shame on every newscaster, journalist, commentator who was broadcasting that weekend and never, I mean, I remember, talk about Irish Catholic. So I remember watching a particular Irish Catholic columnist slash like commentator on MSNBC who was talking about Ted's passing that weekend, tears in his eyes, welling up. And he said that he was recalling an exchange he had with Ted when he asked Ted if he ever cast his eyes out onto the vast blue ocean and talked to his dead brothers. And I just thought, oh my God, oh my God. This guy ran riot through DC, was a documented serial sexual harasser, a drunk. I mean, cast his wife in the worst light possible, made her the scapegoat for all of the reasons he would never become president. So that's a sort of long answer as to the origins of this book. And then when I finished American Predator, I knew I was going to turn right to the Kennedy book, which really came into laser sharp focus after Harvey Weinstein was convicted of rape in a New York criminal court by a jury that was stacked with more men than women, and very nuanced, complicated notions of what sexual assault and rape victims look, sound, and act like. And I thought, okay, like, I think the culture's ready. And I think these are the stories to tell. It's the women. It's not about the men. It's the women.